Hi students, so I'm going to be going over the fraction skills that we've learned in the past 2 weeks to help you review for our test on Friday. So make sure to pay attention, take notes, and see if you got the right answers on your own fraction notes slideshow. The first skill, can you add and subtract fractions with common denominators? Remember, common denominators just means that for 2 or more fractions, the denominator or the bottom number is the same number in all the fractions. So 15 and 15 is the common denominator. Because we have common denominators for adding and subtracting fractions, all you have to do is keep the denominator the same. So if it's 15 in the first fraction and 15 in the second fraction, it will be 15 in the answer. So then the math you're going to do, you're going to be adding, and you just have to add the numerators. So 7 plus 4 will give you 11. Okay, pretty easy, right? It would be the same if you had a subtraction problem. So if it was 7 over 15 minus 4 over 15. Since the denominator is the same, since they're common denominators, you just keep the denominator the same in the answer, and then you just do the math. You subtract the numerators. So 7 minus 4 would be 3. Okay? Let's go on to our next slide. Can you add and subtract fractions that don't have common denominators? All right, so when they don't have common denominators, it means that the denominators or the bottom numbers are different, like in this fraction, okay? So before we can add anything, we have to change our denominators to common denominators, okay? That just means that the easiest way to do it is to multiply the denominators together to get the common denominator. So if I did 4 times 3, that equals 12. So now 12 is going to be my denominator. But I can't just change these to 12 and then do the math. I can't do that because if I change the bottom, I have to change the top. All right, so now I just have to go in and write my math in so I remember what I did, okay? So if our new denominator is 12, 4 times something gives me 12. 4 times 3 gives me 12, okay? And whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top. So I'll just do 3 times 3. And that gives me 9, okay? So my first fraction, 3 over 4, changes to 9 over 12, okay? But I'm not done yet. I still have to go and change the second fraction because remember, I have to have common denominators. So I chose to make this one 12, okay? That's how we did 4 times 3 to make this a common denominator of 12. Then 3 times what gives me 12? 3 times 4 gives me 12, okay? Whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top. So 1 times 4 gives me 4. So our second problem is going to be 4 over 12, all right? Now all I have to do is add it just like if it was a common denominator from the beginning. 9 twelfths plus 4 twelfths gives me 13 over 12. And that is the answer that I would put. Over 12. Our next skill is scaling up fractions to create equivalent fractions. All right, so you might remember that the math involved with scaling up is almost always going to be multiplication. Okay, so you just have to see how you're going from one fraction, the first fraction, to the second fraction. Okay, we're going from small numbers in our first fraction to bigger numbers in the second fraction. So if I go 3 times what gives me 12? Well, I know that that's going to be 3 times 4. Okay, and whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top. So 1 times 4 gives me 4. So this first scale up problem is 4 over 12. 1 over 3 is equal to 4 over 12. In my next equivalent fractions problem, I'm going again from small numbers in my first fraction to bigger numbers in my second fraction. So I'm scaling up. And I know that 2 times what gives me 8? 2 times 4 gives me 8. Okay? And if I do that to the bottom, I have to do that to the top. So again, 1 times 4 gives me 4. So 1/2 is equal to 4/8, or is equivalent to 4/8. Now, what if we needed to simplify instead of scale up? So when we scaled up, we multiplied. When we simplify, we're going to be dividing, okay? So these are a couple extra steps. Remember, we have to find our greatest common factor. And to do that, I suggest just writing down a little chart in your notebook. All right, so the first number is our numerator. I hope y'all are okay if I just write N-U-M for numerator. And our second column is for our denominator. I'm just going to write D-E-N. So our numerator, the top number is 5. And the denominator is 15. So now in this chart, what I'm going to do is write out all of the multiplication facts that will get me 5. So I know that it's 1 times 5 equals 5. And I know that, well, technically 5 times 1 is a different multiplication fact. All right, and those are the only two. Then I'm going to go over to my denominator. And I always start with 1 because 1 can always go into numbers, so it'll help me get organized. 1 times 15 equals 15. And 2 doesn't go into 15, but 3 does. 3 times 5 equals 15. And then technically I could rewrite these backwards. 5 times 3 and 15 times 1. But they're the same numbers. All right, so now that I've written out my factors of these numbers, I have to find the greatest common factor, okay? So remember, greatest means the largest number, okay, the biggest number. And common means that it's on both lists, okay? So let's find our greatest common factor. First, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to circle the numbers that show up on both lists. So on both lists, do I see 1? Yes, I see 1. Do I see 5? Yes, there's 5. Okay. And then, I mean, technically we could go down here and do I see 5? Yes, right there. Do I see 1? Yes, right there. But it's a repeat. And then I check the other list. Do I see 15 over here? No, I don't see 15 over there because 15 can't go in 5. Do I see 3 over there? No, I don't see 3 because 15 can't go into 5. I mean, because 3 can't go into 5 evenly. So now what we have to do is decide, we know which numbers are on both lists. Now we have to pick from those two numbers, which is the largest. And is 1 or 5 the largest? It's totally 5, okay? 5 is the largest, so 5 is our greatest common factor. So then we can go back into our problem and we are simplifying. Remember, we're taking fractions that have bigger numbers in them and making an equivalent fraction that has smaller numbers in them. All right, so 5 divided by our greatest common factor, which is 5. 5 divided by 5 equals 1. And 15 divided by 5, because our greatest common factor, and whatever you do to the top, you have to do to the bottom. 15 divided by 5 equals 3. So when you simplify 5 over 15, or 5/15, it simplifies to 1 over 3. All right, y'all remember how excited I was about this, right? Multiplying fractions is so easy because all you have to do is multiply across, okay? 5 times 3 equals 15. And 6 times 4 equals 24. And that's it. Multiplying fractions is so easy. It gets a little bit trickier when you include a mixed number. So a mixed number is when there's a whole number and a fraction. All right. The easiest way to do this is the C method. Okay. This is where you're going to draw a C. Okay. And then you're going to follow the steps. So the first step is to multiply the denominator by the whole number. All right, 8 times 4, well, that gives me 32. And 32 plus 6 equals 38, okay? So now my first fraction becomes 38 over 8. And then I'll go to my next fraction. I still draw the C, okay? Now I'll do the steps again in order. 3 times 6 is going to be 18. And 18 plus the 1 on the top is equal to 19. So now I need to do 19 over 3. And then you just have to multiply. Okay? Now, 38 times 19 is a crazy number. It's a crazy multiplication problem. So when it's these large numbers and you want to, you can go ahead and just use a calculator. I'm literally using a calculator right now. All right, so I am going to multiply across. So 38 times 19 equals 722 over 8 times 3 gives me 24. All right, so the answer to 4 6/8 times 6 1/3 is 722 over 24. Now, yes, there is a way to simplify this to make it a fraction with a mixed number. But for the test tomorrow, all you have to remember is to multiply across. Okay? Try and see if you can do these answers, and I'll tell you the answer to them. That answer is 517 over 32. And then this last answer, if you work it out and want to know the answer, it is 306 over 12. Okay? All right. For our last skill, what we just learned is dividing fractions, okay? And dividing fractions is so fun because you just have to follow the flip and switch method. That means that the first thing you're going to do is flip the second fraction so that the numerator becomes the denominator and the denominator becomes the numerator. That's the flip part. Okay? And the switch part is when you switch the dividing to multiplying. You're just switching the operation. Okay? So now instead of 4 over 7 divided by 2 over 11, you're going to be doing 4 over 7 times 11 over 2. And then it's just an easy multiplication problem. You're going to be multiplying across. So 4 times 11 and 7 times 2. And 4 times 11 equals 44. And 7 times 2 equals 14. So your answer, if you don't simplify, is 44 over 17. It's just the flip and switch method. All right. Those are all of the skills you're going to need for the test on Friday. Y'all are going to do great. I know you are. Watch this video again if you need to see steps. And you can use the notes that you took in class and for this video on your test. The extra credit question is, my favorite food is chocolate. All right, when you see that on the test tomorrow, you'll know the answer to my favorite food is chocolate.